Today on Websites Decoded, we're talking about messaging. Messaging is the single biggest lever you can pull in how your B2B website performs. So I want to talk about what messaging is and what makes it so difficult for B2B organizations to get right. And in particular, I'm going to share 3 of the most common mistakes I see so that you can be on the lookout for them and avoid them in your B2B website. Did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? That's like trying to solve a puzzle with 80% of the pieces missing, or paying for a coffee that's only 1/5 full. Point is, you miss a lot, unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs and transcripts, all that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get a full cup of coffee, you can do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. What is messaging? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so important? And why do B2B businesses struggle with it? Well, messaging is an expression, a communication of your positioning to your website visitor, to the audience you're trying to attract. And the benefits of good messaging apply broadly throughout your whole website, throughout many places in your go-to-market, but there are none more specifically important to get right than your homepage hero message because of how they influence the first impression, the first few seconds of a visitor's visit to your website. But messaging is a communication, an expression of your positioning. And it's the fact that it's a communication of positioning that makes it so challenging to get right. You can't do messaging in isolation effectively within marketing, within website creation, website copy, website design. It's an extension of business decisions that are made around how you position. Think about messaging as the outer layer of an onion, and when you peel back the layers, you start to find issues such as positioning, as I've mentioned, your ideal customer profile, your ICP, and how you are differentiated from competitors. So positioning is, where are you as a solution provider in the landscape of problems that your buyer has and how high priority they are relative to other problems, i.e. how keen or desperate are they to find a solution and how willing are they to spend money and invest in creating that solution. And how are you positioned relative to the competing brands, businesses, but also competing thoughts and solutions? So relative to other options for solving this problem, how do you stand out? How are you different? And how are you compelling? And until a business can define its ICP, the customer that it's best suited to help and the problem that it's best suited to help with and how valuable that problem is to that customer, until you can define your ICP, and until you can determine your competitive positioning, how your solution is different, how your solution is compelling and unique, compared to other ones, particularly large market incumbents who will always have higher degrees of trust and higher degrees of mental availability simply because of time in market and maturity. Until you can define your ICP and your positioning well and sharply and clearly, it's going to be hard to create messaging that can convey that to your website visitor. And that's why businesses struggle with it so much. Deciding a narrow, specific definition of ideal customer and target market, target audience, the problem you solve and how you solve it, and how you're different from the how you differ from the solutions that those visitors are honestly considering, you can't really do effective messaging. One of the key barriers to effective messaging is acknowledging that a narrower definition of your market will be more beneficial to your pipeline. Businesses again and again fall into the trap of thinking that in order to generate enough pipeline, they've got to appeal to a broad audience. And that means going sector and vertical agnostic, non-specific about problem, not talking to the size and scale and maturity of your target customer, acknowledging none of the points that create synergy between what you offer and who you're trying to sell to, which would maximize conversions on your website, and instead trying to appeal broadly, which forces the use of generic language, and as a result means that your positioning and messaging is diluted and ineffective at turning visitors into high intent inquiries, opportunities, and pipeline. Whereas, conversely, knowing clearly who you're best suited to help, what ICP you help best, is a way to accelerate pipeline creation, because you can create deeper resonance, deeper affinity with visitors who've arrived at your site through a variety of methods, channels, and reasons, and inform them in a quick and compelling way that you offer something that's very well aligned to their challenges and needs, based on exactly who they are. This is how you turn website visits into pipeline more successfully, and why crisp messaging is so powerful. I want to tell you about a podcast that's essential for understanding how AI is reshaping B2B marketing. Marketing Against the Grain, hosted by Kip Bodnar and Kieran Flanagan from the HubSpot Podcast Network. They consistently translate the latest AI developments into actionable marketing strategies you can actually implement. In one episode on loop marketing, they tackle a critical reality. 58.5% of Google searches now end without a click, and traditional linear funnels are becoming obsolete. If you're building websites that actually convert, you need to understand the marketing strategy behind them. Marketing Against the Grain, available wherever you get your podcasts. Now, I look at a lot of websites for a lot of reasons, and I see several mistakes being made again and again. If you can avoid these mistakes, then you can have a more effective website with more effective messaging that will help you generate more pipeline. Mistake number one is, in essence, saying nothing at all in your message, particularly your homepage hero statement. And by nothing, I mean nothing of relevance or worth to your ICP. Key reasons for this, as we've mentioned, are you're trying to appeal to an incredibly broad market, so you're afraid to name a specific sector, a specific vertical, a specific problem, pain, or customer type in your messaging. You're potentially even afraid to mention a specific category of product, because you believe that you can serve the needs of a wide range of categories with different features of your offering. The effect of not saying anything specific to your ICP, not clearly, concisely, and compellingly communicating the specific value you offer to your ICP and how you deliver that value, is that visitors to your website see nothing of relevance to them in the first few seconds, and as a result are potentially inclined to bounce away at a high rate. Most visitors to B2B websites are incredibly time poor, incredibly impatient, and have a dearth of information at their disposal. There's a mountain of information at their disposal. They're not going to spend additional time trying to establish whether your website is a good fit one for them necessarily, meaning that they're going to make an instant judgment on the homepage hero message in many cases, decide whether to stay or leave. So if your message doesn't, honestly, frankly, reach to the pain that your customer has, explain the solution you offer and how you deliver it, then there's a high risk that they're not going to see anything of worth, of meaning to them, and they're going to bounce away. The solution, quite simply, move your messaging along the spectrum from vague to clear. Creativity at the expense of clarity is not a help here. We want to be communicating very clearly what we offer. I would even go so far as to say that sometimes boring messaging is better than clever messaging, if it helps you to get across to your customer what's most important about their visit to your website today. Mistake number two is going to a lot of effort to create a strapline and then using that as your homepage hero message. I love straplines as much as the next person. They're often very clever, very pithy, very witty expressions of, businesses' reason for being in the market they're in. And once you understand a strapline, it can be a very compelling way to support the value of a business in its market. But so often straplines are not clear statements of value. Our website has to have a value proposition that's clear, concise, and easy to take away when a visitor, your ideal customer, arrives on your website. Straplines so often are in need of interpretation or explanation, and the words within those straplines don't speak to the solution you offer. So a homepage hero message that's rooted in your strapline is often a wasted opportunity and won't do the job of communicating your value clearly. Quite often, when I see straplines used as homepage hero statements, the subtitle does a much better job. And this is true of a lot of homepage hero messages in general, but particularly when straplines are used, the subtitle does a much better job of conveying the value. Problem is, significantly fewer people will read the sub-headline, the sub-statements, than the headline. And so you're wasting the potential value of those phrases and those expressions of your proposition if you relegate them to the subtitle. In many cases, swapping subtitle and headline is an immediate improvement to the effectiveness of your homepage hero message. Finally, the third mistake that I often see is that businesses think that once they've got a decent message, and hopefully yours is decent by now, that there's only one message that can ever exist on the homepage, that this is a permanent decision until the next big rethink or refresh of the website or the brand or the product, and that message remains static for a long, long period of time. When in reality, messaging can and should be updated frequently. It should be updated to test the effect of different messages on the buyer conversion rate, fundamentally, if you have enough data to be able to see that, and the conversations that you have. How easy is it to reassure a customer or convince a customer that your product has the value that you think it has based on what they've seen and read on your website and across other go-to-market activities. Messaging can and should update with your feelings about what you offer the market that's valuable. So if today customers are interested in one aspect of your solution, but you see the market shift and another aspect become more compelling, change your homepage message. Test different messaging and call out different features to see whether you can positively impact high intent lead generation, pipeline creation, and pipeline performance. And change your message with the market trends. So tap into different things that you see being considered as important or different topics that are resonating within your market at large, because if you can tie yourself to those, you can more likely create a desire to convert once people are on your website. The idea that there's only one perfect message, and the message that you create when you build your website for the first time or when you go through a significant update is the message that needs to be there for multiple years, is a mistake. You should change it regularly, and you should change it with a variety of factors, internal and external, to see if you can positively impact conversion rate and results. Messaging exists and has an effect throughout your whole go-to-market. But when it comes to B2B websites, that homepage hero is the single largest impact area on the whole product. And so pulling that lever, getting that messaging right, moving messaging down the spectrum from vague and confusing to clear and compelling is a really, really powerful way to improve your website's performance today. So don't hesitate, make that change and see the improvement in your results. Most B2B teams don't realize how much their website is holding them back. VDOC were generating strong demand, but their site just wasn't converting it. We rebuilt their site with their buyers in mind, sharpened the experience and aligned it to their goals. Within 90 days, high intent conversions increased by 100% and demo requests rose by 14%. This is what happens when your website finally works as hard as your marketing. If you think yours might be holding you back, let's start the conversation at blendb2b.com.